We're just naturally creative. Now, I don't mean creative as in we're just all artists, we all create just content. What I mean with naturally creative is one of the things that we do have embedded literally in our history is that we're problem solvers. Hey there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, my goal at this video is to walk you through what it's like to manage a Filipino virtual assistant and why you should hire them. Now, if this is your first time on my channel, my name is Lacaba. I've been working from home since I was 15 years old and now run my own virtual assistant company here in the Philippines where I post videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home. So make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos. Now, earlier this year, I did a video on why you should hire from the Philippines, which you guys can totally check out. But I didn't go into what it's actually like to manage a Filipino virtual assistant. And there is a little bit of a difference. Now, if you have no idea who Filipinos are, we're from the Philippines. I am one. And hopefully at the end of this video, I can walk you guys through the process of what it's really like coming from the outside point of view. And this is coming from me in the last couple of years having to execute my business in helping a lot of our clients have their own executive assistant. And also my co-founder Tom is an American and he has given me a lot of really good tips of like the differences between the two. So I'm hopefully going to be able to walk you through what that looks like from that point of view as well. So the first one is why the Philippines? Why hire from the Philippines? And again, I did cover this in an earlier video, but the first reason is basically just less cultural differences. And what I mean by this is if you are someone who grew up more in the Western culture, the Philippines, we were actually like, we're in it, we're bathed in it. It's only in the recent years that of course the rise of Asian pop has come, but for a lot of our own culture, it is a mix of so many things. Historically, we've been, 300 years with the Spaniards, 30 years with the US. At some point, we were owned by the US. With that, with a lot of the mix and match, and it's so easy to get a visa here, we've just had a really wide variety of cultures. So when it comes to working with Filipinos, it's a little bit easier to relate, it's a little bit easier to converse because of the easier cultural differences. Next is it's pretty easy to train us. A lot of the Filipinos, especially the ones that I've worked with before and currently now inside of my company, we're just like a sponge. We really want to learn. With our educational system, honestly, it's one of the things that we are kind of trained to keep learning, to keep absorbing things. So that is one of the strengths of hiring a Filipino virtual assistant. Another reason is we're just naturally creative. Now, I don't mean creative as in we're just all artists, we all create just content. What I mean with naturally creative is one of the things that we do have embedded literally in our history is that we're problem solvers. We get creative whenever there's a problem in front of us. We try to, as much as possible, solve it right then and there if we can, if we're empowered to. And that's just a really powerful thing when you're a virtual assistant. And of course, and this is something people usually are nervous about when it comes to hiring from the Philippines, we're really proficient in English. And there's a lot of different reasons why. One is taught as a second language in school, probably our third language by the time that we learn it in school. We have like our native language first and then Tagalog and then English. But it is one of the things taught in school. The Philippines is also top exports, basically service. So when it comes to our call center agents, basically, or other virtual assistant agencies like mine in 2XU, there's a lot of different companies now where we really interact with a lot of foreigners, thus our English has to be really, really good. So what do you need to know when it comes to working with Filipinos? First one is personality. 8 out of the 10 people you probably will hire, at least 7 out of 10 now, it's probably going to be a shy Filipino who is not really that assertive, who will wait for your cue. And this is usually managed by empowering and reminding like, hey, this is your responsibility. This is a result that I really need you to be able to do, and kind of getting them out of that shell of you don't have to be scared of making this mistake. It's okay, we'll figure it out. So that's kind of usually like a quick fix or quick, not really fix, but like a quick way to get around the shyness, the non-assertiveness. Is just kind of empowering and reminding them like, hey, this is why I needed you in my business. This is the problem that you are solving. Next is, of course, the time zone differences. Now, depending on where you're at, whether you're hiring from the US, Australia, UK, Philippines has a really good way of overlapping with different times. However, it can be difficult most of the time if you are in the US, especially if you're an EST, where the difference is about 12 hours to 13 hours, depending on where you are at. And yes, we've had clients who it is a little bit of an adjustment to kind of wait, while you're going through your whole day, your assistant's asleep, and then while you are asleep, your assistant's actually awake. But in this way, things can get done while you're asleep, and also things can keep moving forward when you're awake, when you have that little sync with them. them, things can still get done. Next is when it comes to paying your Filipino virtual assistant. This has been a bottleneck for a lot of different people for a lot of different ways. I remember from about 5 to 10 years ago when I got started as a virtual assistant myself. And now there's just so many options of ways that you can pay your assistant. One is just a quick tool called Payoneer, where you can just sign up and be able to have your assistant also sign up on their end, connect their bank account, and that's a quick and easy way to do it. There's also tools like, of course, Wise, where you can do, again, bank-to-bank transfer, although there's some limitations with that. And basically it boils down to you just don't have to use just PayPal to pay your employees. There's a lot of different options now available for you to be able to pay them. Now you have to keep in mind that there is, banking days and like being on time. You have to keep in mind that as you're building trust with your virtual assistant, when it comes to paying them, you have to be consistent about it. You have to, show them the hours of how it was calculated, how it was come out, because it just, again, builds that trust. You have to keep in mind that you are a foreigner from a different part of the world for them, and they have no idea if you actually will really pay them unless, they follow up with you or unless you pay. So you have to keep in mind the just integrity of being the employer, of making sure that you pay them on time and that you pay them right. Next are different benefits basically that Filipinos usually expect when working with an employer. One is called a 13th month pay. Now, a 13-month pay, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video in the first place because it's upcoming, is basically a extra month's pay paid off before Christmas Day. Basically what this means is in our actual labor code is that part of our benefits as a Filipino employee is by, again, before December, is we're getting an extra month pay to be able to cover other expenses basically throughout the year. So how this is usually calculated is, let's take their pay, divide it out by 12, and then times that by the number of months that they've been working with you. So for example, let's say you have an assistant, they've been working with you, and then their pay is about 30K divided by 12 times, let's say they've been working with you for 6 months. Before that Christmas is you pay them out that amount. Of course, been working for you for over a year, then they get 30K additional in their pay. You as a foreign employer, you don't have to, but it's actually something that is really expected. It's been a practice more and more popular now as more Filipinos are working from home. It's just paying them a 13-month pay, and that's usually just the easiest way that you can keep in mind on how to pay it. For Christmas, their pay divided by 12 times the number of months that they've been working for you. That's as easy as it is. You can also think of it as like part of their Christmas bonus, especially if they've been kicking butt basically. So you can think of it in different ways, but that's what the 13-month pay is. Other types of benefits that they get as a Filipino employee, usually if they weren't a freelancer or working with a foreigner client, is basically 3 things. First is our Social Security. The second are basically our health insurance, like a Philippine health fund that we have. And the third one is basically a loaning fund. So anytime in the future, if your assistant decides to want to buy a house or a condo, they're able to draw from that fund that they've already funded basically for themselves for the future. So they can borrow from it, they can use it in a lot of different ways, they can use it for loans and emergencies, so on and so forth. You don't have to actually worry about this as the employer. This might be something that they will take from their pay and voluntarily pay for themselves, and there's a lot of different options now. There's tools like TaxSumo where they can just take care of it online, but that's basically what our government benefits are. Another usual benefit is their HMO or just their health insurance. So here in the Philippines, we are not insured at all. Healthcare is not free. It's actually really expensive depending on what the ailment is and what it is that we need. So HMO for your assistant or for your employee, for a Filipino employee, that's one of the things you might want to open up with them, because it can happen at a time. It can happen with, all of a sudden they were, knock on wood, on an emergency, an accident, or they just got really, really sick. So I advise that if you're working with a Filipino employee, that you discuss the options for them to get a health insurance. This could be something that you cover with them. This could be something that, you guys do half and half. There is a company called MaxiCare where you can pay for a year ahead of checkups and laboratories. There's also ones where it actually covers like the room and board of a hospital if they need to be confined. It's just an important thing to cover with your assistant as you guys are working together. And of course, another thing to note is just holidays. Filipinos have a lot of holidays, but usually what we tend to do is we do default to what holidays our clients have. For this one, it could be that week ahead they were like, hey, we have this long weekend coming up, it's a holiday, I would love to be able to take it. That's usually how short or how quick those could be. Or it could be like, hey, is it okay if I take like a week off? These are the holidays are coming up. These are the fiesta that's going on in barangay. Again, this is something that I really encourage that you open up conversations with. And if you guys are also going to include holiday pay in their pay. Again, you don't have to. It's just one of those things to keep in mind as you're working with a Filipino virtual assistant. Now, lastly, a few does and don'ts when it comes to working with a Filipino virtual assistant that'll hopefully just make it easier for you when it comes to working with us, or basically when it comes to working with Filipinos. First do is just check in often. Just check in often with them, have like, daily syncs, weekly syncs where you're able to touch base and be able to untangle them from the web of having to problem solve a lot. This is a funny thing that happens with the double-edged sword when someone is a really good problem solver, is when they're stuck, they don't say anything. So when you're able to check in off with your Filipino virtual assistant, then you guys are able to like, oh, no, you can just do this one thing. You don't have to do that whole 12-step thing that you have already outlined. Again, you're able to untangle them from the web that they're probably in when you do these check-ins. Plus, it's a good way for you guys to keep in sync, especially with the time zone differences. Next is do create video walkthrough. So when you are teaching your assistant something, it's always better to just have video so that they know step by step what they're looking at. It could be that you're looking at one site and then it looks different on our site, on our end of the world. So it's really important to use tools like Loom or Vidyard to be able to illustrate your point, or even on Zoom Live, having them record what it is that you're teaching them is going to be helpful moving forward for you, because then it's off of your head and now in their head. Speaking of, next thing to make sure that you do with your Filipino virtual assistant is to have them document what they're doing. This is creating standard operating procedures basically that'll help, again, you and them in the future be able to just repeat results, the same results over and over again as needed, and be able to document what's going on in a project. And another really good do is to make sure you train them in the skills that they need. Really easy to be able to train us as long as you give us the right materials. So make sure that you have it in your system where anytime that they have to learn something new, a new platform, a new skill, is that you're able to give them that training. Now, a couple of don'ts. First don't expect them to just know. Even if they've had experience as a virtual assistant, your system is going to be different from the systems from their old client. So walk them through, take the time, invest the time, and this is not just for Filipino virtual assistants either. This is for virtual assistants in general. Don't expect your assistant to just know what they're supposed to be doing just because they have experience or just because you said it once. Have the patience to actually walk them through on how different things are done, so then you can actually get the result that you want. And then after you do it once, usually it's easy to just have it be done over and over again just because they have been able to already do it before. Second don't is just don't leave them to it. Later on, as they get trained more and more in your business, in your life, and what it is that they need to do, they will just be able to do things automatically. Again, have those check-ins. If they're stuck on something, that's the opportunity for them to speak up. If they need something from you, a resource or a tool, they can speak up. So don't just leave them to it. Another don't is when you're giving feedback, don't focus on the negative feedback. Always focus on things that you want them to do more in the future. Again, this is not just a Filipino virtual assistant thing. This in general, when it comes to working with virtual assistants, don't focus on negative when it comes to giving feedback. Focus on, hey, I really want to see this more in the future. And of course, a big don't is just don't focus on how much you're paying them. And this is something that I've seen so many people do when it comes to hiring a Filipino virtual assistant. Is like, oh, I'll just hire this one person who's just charging $2 an hour versus this person who is charging 10. There's such a huge difference in that mindset when you think of like, what is the value of what they're bringing into my business? Because if you keep thinking that way, if you just keep choosing who's the cheaper option, you're actually hurting our economy, you're hurting future freelancers, you're hurting the future basic of freelancing as well in the Philippines, because you're only looking at who is the cheapest and not someone who can actually bring that value in your business. So just something to keep in mind. Now, if you guys like this video, make sure, of course, to hit the thumbs up button right there and comment below. Have you worked with a Filipino virtual assistant before? I would love to know. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss my videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to business from home, which you guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and with that, small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!